Mission Log Live is brought to you by Eagle Moss Hero Collector and their collection of exclusive Star Trek visual reference books and other great titles and gifts waiting for you at herocollector.com/books. Use promo code MISSION10 at checkout for 10% off all books and graphic novels. Bringing you the Trek when you need it the most. It's Monday night. It's 7 p.m. Pacific. It must be Mission Log Live. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Norman Lau. And I love Mission Log Live nights. You know why, John?
Why is that? Why do you love it?
Because we get to talk to all the Mission Log Live listeners live in person. And I think it's just like one of the greatest things to do right now in our COVID lockdowns, to be able to reach out, not necessarily across the aisle, but through our screens, to be able just to see and hear and talk to people about Star Trek, about what's going on, about our poll questions, about how people are doing out there, and in turn letting people just see how we're doing in here. And I think that's fantastic. It's nice to connect with our community here at Mission Log.
I love it. That's what I look forward to every time we do the show. And we'll talk a little bit about our Patreon hangout as well. It's nice to be able to connect, to see you, to see our Trek pals hanging out as well. So look, you know what to do. You give us a call. You pick up the phone. You call us at 669-900-6833. I know, right?
Ollie knows I do that too.
Easy to screw up. Or better yet, click on the Zoom meeting link or use the one tap from your smartphone. It takes the guesswork out of it for you. And then you can, of course, be connected to Earl. He will connect you to us, and we will talk Trek. Now, let's talk a little bit about next week. There will be a Mission Log Live. We have not narrowed down the topic yet, so join us. It will either be topical or it will be guest-driven. That is what we do. This week on the regular Mission Log, we have Deep Space Nine, Rocks and Shoals. So count them, 2 episodes into Season 6 of DS9. Norm, I think right before the show, you were saying that you're a little more pumped, you're a little more jazzed about looking at DS9 right now. What has changed for you?
I think it's actually how the serialization has really kicked in. Like since Call to Arms, the season finale of season 5, and then going into A Time to Stand and now Rocks and Shoals, each one of those episodes just not necessarily cliffhangs. It does have an ending, but it has a hanging ending.
Yes.
So it helps keep that momentum going from episode to episode. I can't wait. It's so good right now.
Yeah.
It's so good right now.
It's really, really good, and I think we're having a lot of fun with it. So join us. I assume that most Mission Log Live listeners are also listeners of the regular Mission Log, but if you're not, if you haven't caught up with us on DS9, do so, because it is a blast. And also, I mentioned it before, thank you to everybody who joined us on Patreon the other day. We do try to do it monthly, do a live hangout like on Saturday or a Sunday morning. Might break up those times and days a little bit just to accommodate people from literally all over the world who hang out with us for a couple hours. Norman and I are having our coffee. Some other people, depending on where they are, having that glass of wine or that cocktail to wind down for the night.
Somewhere.
It is. And it's a blast. It's unstructured, it's unformatted, it's open to everybody at every level of our Patreon support. So even if you just drop in for $1, then you're there. You get to hang out, and it's just nice, like you were saying, Norman, to have that connection, to have that personal connection while we're all staying at home so much. So yeah.
And it's nice to be able to talk about just a wide variety of topics. I mean, of course, we talk about Star Trek and we talk about some of the episodes that we've done, but it's nice just to be able to see how everyone's doing. And it's important right now. It's important to be able to maintain that level of connection with people. Some people need that connection more than most. And sometimes I even find myself saying, you know what? It would be nice to be sitting down with a group of friends and just talking about something.
Yeah. Exactly. And as long as you're mentioning friends and talking, we haven't done it yet, so let's say hello to our friends who are in the chat. By the way, Dominic calling out right away, Blake 7.
I'm getting there.
Yes.
Getting there, Tom. Like, we did talk about that on Patreon too. I'm like, I'm getting there.
We did. We did had a little education about Babylon 5 from you, and that was very cool. So there's Paul. There's Holly. There's Holly saying right away, no one can really take my place. And you are 100% Holly.
100%,
And Scott
right.
Palm agreeing with that. So good to see you there. There's Lou. There's David. David says seasons 5 through 7 of DS9, some of the best run of episodes. I frequently do rewatches. David, you should send us some of your thoughts on the episodes we're hitting now, and I might be able to incorporate those into some of the shows. So, and actually, he reiterates, he says, you guys are heading into the golden time of DS9. It keeps up this quality to the end. We'll hold you to that. Well, not that you're personally responsible, but I'm making you personally responsible for it now. There's Paul. There's other Paul. There's now. Danny says, who will be the third host in place of Holly for future Mission Log Live? So, Danny, let's say, and that, of course, is what Holly was replying to. There was nobody replacing Holly. The whole idea, and as Holly pointed out, nobody can replace her. The whole idea is that per show, so you've got Picard, you've got Lower Decks, you've got Discovery, we have Strange New Worlds coming up. So per show, we will introduce somebody new to cover that season with us. And Holly was along for the ride on season 3 of Discovery. She will come back for season 4 of Discovery, but probably talking about having, some people worked in before that time too. We had Ashley V. Robinson join us for Lower Decks. When Lower Decks comes back, she will be back with us for season 2 of that show. And we just want to keep it mixed up, but we also want to keep some consistency there. So you meet somebody, you get to know them on the show, and then it's their voice that gets you through that season. And hopefully as multiple seasons go, that arc with those characters. So that's the plan. And we were just talking about that at the beginning, saying, hey, who else can we introduce that expands the Mission Log family? I'm looking forward to that.
What's neat about that, John, is like doing my very first Mission Log Live was with Reka last year.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Around this time. And I was like, wow, I'm doing a Mission Log Live show with a Star Trek cast member, a celebrity of Star Trek. That blew my mind. I was like, wow. And of course, it was a great privilege to do the shows with Ashley V. I emphasize the V because it's important to her.
It is.
And with Holly, because they were almost so much fun. And I'm looking forward to when we can do this dance again.
Yeah. And funny enough, Holly just texted me and said, I'm doing season 4. Yeah, you're doing season 4. Can't get out of it now. It's public knowledge. So that is the plan. Norman, let's talk about our poll questions tonight. So we do, of course, want to cover our poll from last week. And last week, we're staying on this theme of anticipating what comes next, because we wrapped up Discovery season 3. We wrapped up that story arc. We talked about the season finale, and we asked you, what are you anticipating the most? So Norman, give us the results from that poll from last week.
Well, since we had a little bit more time, the poll numbers have gotten a little bit more fleshed out, but no real surprises here. So Picard season 2 comes in at a 22% poll rating, with Discovery season 6 only coming in at 8%. Lower Decks season 2 coming in at 18%, and pretty obvious here that we're very excited about the next new series for Star Trek, and that's Strange New Worlds coming in at a whopping 54%. So it's basically taking the majority of the poll votes there.
So I'm not surprised that has the majority, but I'm surprised at the spread on the other shows, because I think the majority is definitely going to go to the show that we know the least about, just because there's so much question and everybody's sort of got it built up in their minds. They've already seen a lot of Discovery. They've seen a bit of Picard and a bit of Lower Decks. So I'm not surprised that those are pretty close to each other. But yeah, I mean, I got to say, I'm really looking forward to Strange New Worlds too. We've got a little time before we get there, though.
Yeah, I mean, the disparity there is pretty vast between, say, 54% and then next Picard coming in at 22%. But I don't think that's really that surprising. I think Discovery season 6, is it season 6 already?
Oh,
Wow.
no. Discovery season
It's like
4. Season 4.
Yeah.
4. Yeah.
That's why nobody's voting for that. No, they
know,
haven't even gotten to
right?
season 4 yet, let alone season 6. So
No, I think it was a disparity from the or discrepancy from the poll results getting mixed into the season numbers. So,
but even so, though, I think that when you have the fourth season, if it was the only season right now, that would be obviously taking the lion's share of the anticipation. But remember, we went through 22, 23 weeks of continuous new Star Trek. We haven't done that since when? Since like the late 90s.
Right.
So,
that is a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And to be fair, each one of these series is hitting its own lane specifically for each fandom, specific fandom genre. So you have the animation fans with Lower Decks, you have the TNG fans with Picard, you have the new Trek fans with Discovery, and then obviously the TOS fans that have been teased, and very well, mind you, by Anson Mount as Captain Christopher Pike. So that anticipation, I think, it's well noted.
Yeah, and I'm good with that. Like, we've talked about that before on our shows, and we've talked about that in our Patreon get-togethers for sure. But I like the idea of Star Trek finding its individual audiences, because the stakes right now with the way shows are made and with the way the expectation is to make a successful show, you're actually much better off when you have that kind of short run. Here's the show that fills this need for this audience. Then we take a little bit of time. Here's the show that fills this need for this audience. Now, if you love them all, that's great. But if you just find the one or two that really speak to you, and that is your Star Trek, well, look at the last 50 plus years of Star Trek. People find the series, the characters that really speak to them. And that's why it feels like we're in this sort of new golden age where you have fans from all different points of view discovering, if I may use that word, the Trek that works for them. Right. Now, related to that, we asked our audience about the character that they might want to see in upcoming Strange New Worlds. I thought that was a brilliant way to ask this, Norman. So why don't you catch us up there?
Well, I mean, this comes from wanting to see who inhabits this space now in this current Strange New Worlds era and pre-TOS era, if you will, between, say, The Cage and Where No Man Has Gone Before. We're looking at that era, or even prior to that. So at 9% right now, at 9%, and I'm sure that these are going to wildly change over the course of the week, we have James T. Kirk having have people voting in for his appearance sometime on Strange New Worlds at 9%. We have Gary Mitchell at 11%. We have Dr. Boyce, I know a favorite of yours, John.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
At 36%. But, and I'm not surprised at this number, and it may change, like, again, in a week. But T'Pol at 44% is by and large taking the lead here. And I think it's just because, first of all, I think a lot of people that watched Enterprise really did fall in love with her character. Jolene Blalock did an amazing job evolving that character over the course of 4 years. And I think that also we want to see how she's going to be, say, the de facto ambassador post Saval, and see how she's going to bridge the gap between that universe and this universe, or the Strange New World universe.
Would you want to see Jolene play T'Pol? Or, I mean, does it matter to you if it's Jolene or not? You would rather just see the character and know what that character's been up to for literally 100 years between Enterprise and Strange New Worlds?
I personally would love to see Jolene take another crack at the role, just to see like what she would bring to it. But the thing is that no one so far has reprised their character role per se from one series to another. Like, it's not like we got Leonard Nimoy playing Spock again. Of course, we couldn't do that, or even this computer-generated image. So would it be too much of an ask if you had Jolene play T'Pol, because literally she would be bridging Enterprise that ended in 2005 to now in universe, to this new era. So would it be jarring or would it be accepted? Hard to say.
I feel like Enterprise is still a show that doesn't get a lot of love. It does get love, but I think it maybe gets less love than, TNG, DS9, Voyager. So I like something that bridges the gap. I like that in Star Trek Beyond, when you had that sort of design sense with the Franklin and really building that bridge back to the aesthetics of Enterprise. It made that universe fit. So I'd kind of like to see that. And honestly, I'm glad that it's not James T. Kirk in the lead right now, because I feel like it's too obvious, it's too overdone. I don't think Star Trek needs to be entirely about James T. Kirk and the Enterprise. And of course, what we would have here would be a 10 years younger Kirk than the one that we caught in TOS. But I just feel like we've done that story.
Right.
The reason I want Dr. Boyce is that we had that little tease of him in the cage, but you're kicking it right off with this relationship between Dr. Boyce and Captain Pike. And I just feel like the intimacy of that friendship, there is so much to be explored that led up to those moments, that led up to the doctor showing up at Pike's cabin with the martini mixer, with the martini shaker. And that it tells you so much in such a short amount of time. And we can really explore the depths of that relationship before we got there. So I think it would be cool to see. It would be cool to see an older actor play that role, because in the show, in the cage, it was an older actor playing Dr. Boyce. I just think there's a lot of a room for exploration and growth there. So
John, I'd like to jump into some of these comments, because some of these comments are fabulous.
Me too. I hope we're looking at the same ones. You go right ahead.
I want to mention David Ketchis, because he said, I have a better idea. Considering there was one other long-lived species on the show Enterprise, most people do not know that denobulans tend to be long-lived just like Vulcans. So let me be the first to sign up the great John Billingsley for a spot on Strange New Worlds. I love that idea.
Yes.
Love that idea. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. I think that's a fantastic idea. When we were talking about shows coming up, Chris Riker asked, has anyone seen any clips or images from Prodigy? And Prodigy's been really quiet. We got the announcement, but there hasn't been a lot of detail released about it. So that's another one to look forward to, aimed again at a different kind of audience. And I love that. I want Star Trek to have that specific younger audience that's going for.
Do you think that they're keeping it under wraps because social media tends to either spoil too much or influence too much or start creating camps too quickly?
Constantly.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're doing that on purpose, I'm not sure. But yeah, I just feel like come out with the show when you're good and ready to come out with it. Social media, the fan rumor mill, I think it can really hurt expectations and acceptance of a new show. So just finish it, get it out there, and then we'll take care of it after it comes out. There are some other good recommendations here. Commodore Mendez, Carlos recommends. I think that's a good one. And let's see. Well, Dr. Boyce, and then Scott Palm says young McCoy. And it's not out of the question that you could have a younger McCoy show up at some point, because, of course, he joined the Enterprise later, if you're following strict kind of, canon timeline order. So I think that would be a cool change to have. And then McCoy was a little older. He's about 10 years older than the other characters we were following in TOS.
And it would be neat to see if there's any reference to, say, McCoy at Ole Miss, seeing Emily Dax, because there was that relationships there.
Right.
Deep Space Nine.
By the way, somebody asked, where are those polls? They're on Twitter, just because the polling system on Facebook has left a lot to be desired. Yes. So we haven't we haven't really been able to get that back up and running on Facebook the way it should be, the way it needs to be. Go ahead.
Sorry. John, we had a great interview with Glenn Zipper last week, and people have been able to see his Challenger documentary on Netflix. We would love to hear your feedback on that. If you have not yet, please do so. But one thing I wanted to talk about regarding what Glenn Zipper said was the importance of community when it comes to fandom, because I literally I believe that he was holding back some emotion when he was saying that he couldn't believe that he could feel comfortable enough to express how much he needed a community like ours to find other fans to be able to talk to be able to express himself openly. Remember, he was saying that, for the longest time when I was in a dark place, I watched Star Trek: The Next Generation, and those people became very important to me on a weekly basis and became my friends, and it became something I can depend on. And then he said something to the tune of, does that make any sense? Does that sound weird? And I said, absolutely not. That's what we do. So I'm hoping that with that, kind of like with that confession in a way, more people share that same kind of sentiment. More people share that same kind of story with us, because I think that that's important that you do that.
I could not agree with you more. Absolutely. We do have a caller standing by, but before we get to that, there are a couple of more questions and comments that I want to get to real quick here. Miles says, John and Norman, what do you think Discovery is going to do with Suru? That is a great question. And I mean, first of all, the good news is that we know he's coming back. We know that Doug Jones will be back as Suru in some capacity, in some form. I would hate to lose him as a starship captain, or at least as some ranking position in Starfleet, because I really feel like Suru showed the most growth over those 3 seasons that we had him. And I love, I said it before on the show, I love his style as a captain. I love the demeanor that he has as a captain. It's very different from the types of captains we've had before. I think it's a necessary counterbalance to the other like personality types that we have on the show. So I don't know what they'll do with him, but we do know that he is coming back. I hope that we get something valuable out of him back on Kaminar, and sort of reacclimating himself to his people now after nearly 1,000 years, and acclimating Su'Kal to having to, live among real people. That's a fascinating story to explore, but please bring him back to Starfleet. He has to be.
I'm actually gonna disagree there a little bit.
Okay.
I'm gonna disagree there a little bit. I'm
All
not
right.
gonna say bring
Do
him back.
so.
I'm not gonna say bring him back so much to Starfleet. I say bring him back to the United Federation of Planets, because I think he would probably be a better ambassador than a better captain now. I think that he just has the natural gift of diplomacy, and he has the natural demeanor of calm, of measure, of being able to think out and find ways to negotiate and to find ways to calm situations down. Like, say, for instance, at the very beginning when they were in the bar and, the bandits came and they were threatening them with violence, he was very cool-headed. He was very even-tempered. And I think that that's something that you need at the head of the ambassadorial wing of the Federation, to be able to bring all of these new worlds or old worlds together again. Somebody who's speaking on behalf of the Federation, perhaps the next Federation president.
Oh, all right. So wait, you're telling me it's not President Cronenberg?
I don't know about that. I didn't.
Okay.
I mean,
because I'm fully committed to this idea of the clandestine President David Cronenberg of the Federation 32nd century. I'm fully committed to that. I know that I'll be deeply disappointed next season, but I'm still holding out for it.
Well, there's the president, and there's always kind of like that person that maneuvers power.
Yeah, just say there's very much that we don't know about David Cronenberg in the future, and I will still only call him by the performer name. Yes. The great David Cronenberg. Hey, let's say hi to Mike, who is hanging on. And Mike, how are you doing tonight? Welcome back, by the way. It was a pleasure to have you. When we were talking to Glenn Zipper last week, you had such great sort of interest and insight into his world and what he was talking about with the Challenger. Welcome back to the show tonight.
Thank you, sir. That was a lot of fun last week. I was a big hit at work this week, getting a chance to talk about that. So,
nice. Very cool.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. And there is no other name for David Cronenberg other than the great David Cronenberg. So whether or not he's the man behind the curtain pulling the strings or the Federation president, I just wanted to touch base on this. Doug Jones was such a high point for Discovery Season 3.
Yes.
In makeup, out of makeup, as the captain, as the caretaker for Sukal was phenomenal. I hate to lose him as a captain because I love the way he led. He led with empathy and grace, and he had a calming influence, and he put his people first, and he was a real servant leader. And that's those are all the qualities that I admire. I love to see more of that. And it's nice to know that he'll be back. And in what capacity, Norm? I am intrigued by the Federation president take that you have on that. I will put that in my wish list.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll see, right?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, that empathy and grace, and Suru would lead with compassion, and he would lead with encouragement of the people who are under him. I know that when we got to the moment that Tilly was promoted, there was a lot of pushback, and there were fans who said, oh, this is unrealistic, she doesn't deserve it, But you take the relationship that Tilly had with Suru, and Suru was there to be the one to say, you can grow out of where you are now. I believe that you have these qualities. I want to help nurture you to get there. And even in the relationship between that very brief moment that we got between Suru and the president of Nivar, formerly Vulcan, you can see this compassion and understanding that was really heartfelt and genuine, I thought, on screen. So, by the way, have you guys seen the meme that was going around? And I want to say it was John Cooley who created it. Nivar stands for now it's Vulcan and Romulus. and I just thought that was...
Is that for real? Or did Cooley do that?
Cooley did it. Yeah. And I don't know if he originated it, but it's brilliant.
There was some canon involved in it, but I love that meme. Yes. It really was phenomenal. Who you trust is more than who's next in line for the job. And Tilly became a confidant for Suru, and he can see maybe some leadership or maybe something. Maybe it's just trustworthiness that caused him to put her in that position, realistic or not, his decision. And it also had the added advantage of keeping everybody else in the position where they were. Once that way they had, they had Owo where she was, they had Detmer at helm, they had Bryce and Reese doing their thing and Nielsen doing her thing. And they didn't have to upset a team that was working so well together. So there is justification for it, but that trustworthiness is a big part of it, I would think.
What I love about Doug Jones in this season and where he took Suru, where the writers took Suru, was that you really did kind of see the true tempering of an entire being from season 1 to season 2 to season 3. Temper metal too hard one way, it's too brittle. Temper it too hard the other, or too soft one way, it becomes too malleable. And I think he's learned a lot from that. And I think that Doug Jones has actually learned a lot from being able to take this character in those different directions. So there's a great depth of wisdom behind his eyes when he speaks. And it's not just acting. I think that there's a lot going on from his own personal experiences that brings that type of sympathy and empathy and understanding when he's talking to some of these newer talents that, like, you know what, everything's going to be all right. There has to be a sense of credibility and a sense of authenticity when you're that good of an actor, so that you're not just performing the words, but you're emulating what you feel. And I think that that's something that is very rare in terms of being able to transcend the printed words and the performance to something that is wholly special. And I think that's where Doug Jones was with Suru this season. It was, I hate to use the word like the tour de force performance or epic, it was it was special. It was a special performance that I think we were all graced to watch.
The fact that he can do that in that makeup, and then his performance, the impact in the last 2 episodes when he was out of makeup was just even stronger, even more special.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep.
Interesting thing. You mentioned his character arc, and I'll say this, and you can kick me off if you want after that. But it took me a while to wrap my head around this, and I really think I only got it last night. Typically, Star Trek explores humanity by going to different worlds, examining an issue from a global perspective, and kind of shining a light on it that we can all think about and chew on and discuss and learn something from. And I think Discovery kind of flips the script on that a little bit. It explores humanity by looking at the people on the ship. So we've got to see Suru evolve and discover himself. We've got to see Michael Burnham evolve and discover herself, and as well as Tilly, as well as Detmer, as well as hopefully more characters. And now we have Adira Tal also, and that's a fascinating story to see her discover herself. So it's still exploring humanity, but it took me a while to wrap my head around it, that it's looking more inward at the crew and not outward at these different places you go. So I'm viewing the show in a whole new light after this season.
That is very well said. Could not agree with you more. I appreciate it. And no, we're not going to kick you out at all, but you got to go. So, no, Mike, truly a pleasure to hear from you, and we'll see you again soon, I hope. All right.
Great to be here, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Take
Good
care.
talking to you.
Hey, we're going to take care of some business here in just a second, Norman, but I did want to mention there was another question that somebody had earlier in the chat. They were asking about the order in which the next round of shows will come out. And to be quite honest, we don't really know. We do know that Disco Season 4 had started filming a while back. We do know that after talking to Mike McMahon, they had done the lion's share of the work on Season 2 of Lower Decks. So if I had to put money on it, I would say that, by the middle of the year, we're going to hear at least an announcement, and we'll know one of those two shows will come next. Then, Picard has only just started really in earnest in their pre-production, from my understanding. Their filming schedule is still a bit down the road. And then Strange New Worlds, again, you've got pre-production, but you're talking about down the road with a lot of that. So, it'll come, but I would think that we would see Lower Decks and Disco first. Then we'll get to those other shows. So and no word yet on Prodigy. We'll know.
Well, we're still within the COVID pandemic lockdown in many respects. So the entertainment industry still has to do their due diligence and to be responsible, keeping their talent safe. I do remember when we were talking to Mike McMahon in our interview, a few months back, that he said that he was finishing up principal writing on Season 2, but they still have to record with their actors. I think they have sent out the special, recording audio kits for them to be able to get the fidelity that they needed. But you know what?
Exactly.
We'll see when it happens.
We will. Hey, really quickly, we just want to take care of some business, and then we'll get right back to our calls, and then maybe some special guests who are standing by. So quick word from the officially authorized special edition books collection published by Eagle Moss and available online at the Eagle Moss shop.
Yes, please check out the exclusive Star Trek bookshop at herocollector.com/books to discover a range of definitive visual guides that go deep into the Star Trek history and canon, extensively researched and developed by Star Trek expert Ben Robinson. The Shipyard series presents a timeline of almost every ship that has ever appeared in the Star Trek TV shows and movies, from the original series forward to Discovery and beyond. Books in the Designing Starship series boldly go where few have gone before, deep behind the scenes into the conception, development, and details of ships from every era. You'll even find comprehensive official Star Trek graphic novel collection. What a mouthful.
But well done, Norman.
Thank you.
There's something for every Star Trek fan of every generation, plus friends of Mission Log Live. That would be all of you. Use our code MISSION10 at checkout and receive 10% off all books and graphic novels, not just Star Trek, literally all of them. To browse around the shop, go to herocollector.com/books and use promo code MISSION10 at checkout for your 10% discount. And all right, we want to say hi to our next caller here real quick, and that is John Arminio. John, welcome to the show. And then I teased it, we're going to bring in some special guests.
Welcome, John.
Yeah, John, you're so lucky you get to be here right when we're about to bring in those special guests. So what is on your mind?
Right. You're the warm-up act.
Right. Make it good, man.
Thank
Make
you.
it good.
Thank you. I know that the reason a lot of these Star Trek shows exist is because of the nostalgia so many fans have for the series, and the big trend in media right now is reunions and revamps. I think there was a Frasier reunion miniseries just announced. But I'm hoping that Strange New Worlds keeps to the new in its title. Because I know it'd be great to see characters that we've seen before and a younger Bones and things like that. But and even if it's like a prequel series, I do want Star Trek to keep moving forward with new ideas. Because I think part of the reason why that original pilot is so exciting to watch as fans now is because it hints at a real frontier that was explored by the Enterprise before Kirk. And I know that, as we learned from the Star Wars prequels, sometimes filling in those gaps isn't as exciting as we would have hoped. Yeah. But there's just so much great material to be mined by things Star Trek hasn't necessarily explored yet. And I know I haven't watched Enterprise, and I know that was kind of the idea of that series. But I still think there's so much more new stuff that show can show us that I hope it doesn't retread a lot of already seen material.
John, I could not agree with you more. And that's why I was so kind of dismayed at seeing a lot of fan chatter about wanting Kirk back. And believe me, I love watching the original series. I love Shatner's performance as James Kirk in those shows and those movies. I loved Chris Pine as Kirk. I'm done with Kirk. I want stories that are led by character and led by compelling stories and show me something new. Star Trek isn't Star Wars. Star Wars is about the Skywalker family. Great. They're all by divine right, apparently. It has been decided that they are the saviors of the universe. Fine. Star Trek is about people who are really good at their jobs, doing an amazing job and learning along the way. There's a lot to be discovered there, a lot to be mined there. And when you have the formula such as it is, a starship, people who are talented, learning and discovering, you're gold. You don't need to make it all into this sort of slavish adherence to canon. That immediately makes my eyes roll into the back of my head, and I want nothing to do with it anymore. So, thank you for allowing me to rant on my own show.
My pleasure.
John, you went off camera for a second about the height of an apple box.
That's well, I'm kind of short, so every now and then I need to. Hey, John, you are extraordinarily lucky because you called into the show at the very moment that we are welcoming our special guests to the show, unannounced. Here they are. Directly from Discovery, by the way, Chancellor Laurel, Mary Chieffo, and our very good friend, Jessica Lynn Verdi from Sci-Fi 5, another Roddenberry podcast. And we're going to talk to them about improv, about Star Trek, about sci-fi, about all the nerd things. So, hello, welcome.
John, you're the only person on the planet that has ever said my last name correctly, even probably better than me.
Wait, come on. It's Verdi. How difficult would it? What do people say?
There's a lot of judgment around me Americanizing it, surprisingly. Like, should it be Verdi or Verdi?
Do you have to do the finger thing? With the Verdi, the Verdi,
I talk like this, so don't get me wrong. It's like Verdi. Anyway, but like almost people I have worked with for years go, just go very, like this, like the mental gymnastics people go through. Anyway, it was just so, I felt at home. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, so you're welcome.
I'm
Only the best for our guests. Only the
best.
Oh, my heart. I feel so welcome. But let's talk about Laurel for a second.
And I hope I got your last name right. It's Chieffo, right?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
So funny.
Yes.
I'm realizing that Jess and I haven't fully bonded over people slightly mispronouncing our last names, vaguely Italian last names, but it's like such a benchmark of and Jessica and Mary, everyone knows those. Like it's always, I knew if the people were doing last names on roll call, they'll be like, Mary, I'd be like, here it comes. Chieffo. Chieffo. Shiffy.
That's See, people look at my last name and they just go, "Come on, for real?"
Is that your Hollywood
Really?
name? I mean, come on, man. Really.
Yeah.
I love that.
No, really. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say that I think I felt like I needed to do like how Laurel would say Jessica's name, which I feel
Ooh.
something like
Mm.
Jessica Lynn Verdi.
Ooh. Ooh, that's good.
Verdi. I think she would clean on it
Whoa.
up. She'd make it a little bit more
I got chills.
guttural and glottal stoppy. Verdi.
And nobody, you can't see it, but you added 3 apostrophes in her name where there
Yes.
weren't any
Yeah.
before. That's how it
Actually
works.
saw it as she was saying that. I saw like the dash, comma,
Yeah.
Right.
vowel. You know?
Right.
That's going on a T-shirt.
Yeah. I like it. I like
Well,
it.
it's canon now. It's canon.
I love it. I love it. So listen, we've got podcast stuff to talk about. We've got improv stuff to talk about. But really quickly, before we get into that, Mary, I would love it if you told us what you're doing on Star Trek Online, because that just dropped the other day.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
it's so thrilling to have it out there, and I've been lucky enough to be able to see some clips and everything coming out. And I mean, it was so lovely. Al Rivera, who was originally approached me about it from Star Trek Online like 2 years ago, because they build these stories so early on. And when he said 2021, I was like, well, that's going to be forever, and then suddenly we're here. And, we started chatting last year, and he let me know the general story. And I just think it's such a compelling Klingon plot. I think they just went full Game of Thrones, going to Greathor. And it's obviously very moving to have Laurel brought back in any capacity, but particularly in the hands of such, well-versed and sensitive and compassionate artists who really wanted to do her justice. And then just seeing it be animated, and they really have studied my face, and like there's certain shots that when I was watching it I was like, wow, I would have probably made that choice.
Nice.
Like there's one moment where she like opens her eyes and looks around, and I was like, yeah, totally, absolutely. That was really, and then just of course when I got to record, just coming back to her voice, luckily because this franchise is so expansive, I'm always, leaning into her voice at certain moments for conventions or whatnot, but to really say lines that felt very, very her. And then I'm finally united with my my son, Vogue.
Right.
Vogue is my
But, oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
my son, Tanavik,
Yes.
which is very fun.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just been awesome, and to have such a warm reception and to kind of launch the year in that creative realm has been wonderful.
Well, because there's a lot of story to tell. That's when we left Laurel, there was so much more story to tell, and I love that Star Trek Online can carry that on.
Mhm.
That was funny. It's like a sitcom. When we last left Laurel,
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was hanging
Exactly.
with Norm and Cliff.
yeah,
You know, and
exactly.
By the way, I don't want to leave out our caller, our deeply philosophical Star Trek fan and viewer and podcast host in his own right, John Arminio. So, John, meet the Chancellor. John, meet Jessica.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah,
With yet another Italian last name.
yeah,
Indeed. Many mispronunciations there have been.
yeah. Let's see. How would Laurel's Arminio? I think we should get some glottals in Arminio.
Arminio, yes.
That's
Yep.
see, that's
Oh, yeah,
good.
sure. Yeah, you've got the Klingon voice. You got it.
Oh, see, now you're going to have Norman doing his Worf. Any second now, I hear a
Oh, yeah.
Worf coming.
Gotta
Yep.
do
Mhm.
that would be Arminio.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's good. That's
This is
good.
great. Really talented actors just keep saying my name.
Yes,
Calling every week.
that's awesome. Hey,
So Mary-
I do. No,
I wanted to
go
ask
go.
Mary-
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask Mary a question. There was a
Yeah.
video out there of having you kind of deconstructed from your makeup all the way back to just to Mary again.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that having appliances on you help inspire your performance. So when you're doing lines for Star Trek Online and you're not in makeup, do you have to get into a different frame of reference so you can bring Laurel back out without the appliances?
Absolutely. weirdly, because I had to go back in for much of the first season in particular and do redub a lot of my lines because there was some prosthetic stuff that they've discovered the sound a bit. And so I had actually really kind of trained for this because I went in and I would say 95% of my lines, I had to go back in and kind of get in her space without being in the makeup. And I really loved that. Like, I mean, I'm sure it was also, I wish there had been a camera because I'm all physical and getting into these really intense moments in the booth all alone. But I think the sound people were very entertained. So I'd had that experience. And then also I was very lucky with my scene partners, Shazad, Ken Mitchell, Doug Jones. They were all very willing, and Jane Brooke, can't forget Jane Brooke. We love Jane Brooke. Sure. We would meet, a few days prior once we got the script and go over our scenes. And particularly when we were very Klingon heavy, we had to do that because we had to figure out what the scene was in English before we went back and did it in Klingon. And so I've actually had a lot of time to feel like I'm inhabiting her without the prosthetic. And I just think it's great because her essence to me, her core is so innate in me at this point that I felt I learned a lot about her when I had the prosthetics on, about how I had to push through. And that was part of her metaphorical struggle too, is being confined, even when she was a commander, how she felt less than, and then as a chancellor, how she had to hold back in order to inhabit her power for all those other Klingons to give her respect. So I'm very grateful I had the experience with the prosthetic, but now that I've done all that work, happy to jump in and do the voice on its own.
Nice. Hey, I do want to, because we do have the other stuff we want to talk about, the crassly commercial part of the program that we'll get to in a moment. But I think John brought up a really interesting point here when you had joined us, and we were talking about kind of the expectations of shows and I wonder, you're both nerds, and I say that with love. You both know your fandoms, Do you feel like, I'm trying to find a delicate way to put this. I feel like there are fans who think they know what they want out of a franchise, who think they know what they want out of an entertainment property, but somewhere deep down, that might be a really poor choice that then puts producers, writers, creatives into a box that they can't get out of. And I think we saw that with Star Wars in particular. And John, you made a great point about that, about just trying to fill gaps and create problems for them to solve with quote unquote canon. Do you both feel that there's some truth to that?
I'm going to actually reference a common friend of Mary's and mine named Jessie Gender, who talks about this so much. She's a huge Trekkie that literally will quote people who go, "This isn't my Trek, and this isn't the Trek that I wanted." And then she'll find the example of the exact show from a TOS episode that did the same exact goddamn thing. So I don't know where our PG lands, but I'll
it just went out the window apparently. But
I'll keep it there. But I guess both Mary and I have strong feelings because we also saw the final Star Wars together. I think I don't fall in the camp of don't remake things, don't make new things. Every generation deserves to have their own version of a Star Wars. It's really cool that we have a lead female in Star Wars. It's really cool that Star Trek isn't just trying to do the same exact thing, like you guys said, with Kirk over and over and over again. That being said, I'll watch Kirk forever. That's just me. Like I'm a Kirk person, but we don't need his story anymore. The problem ends up happening. Like, why was Marvel so successful is that they pretty much had a really well realized trajectory. Star Wars didn't have that. And like J.J. Abrams let the fanboys win, and you didn't see Kelly Tran in the last episode. Like, they just went, "Oh, we don't want that problem." There's a difference between pandering and trying to make something your own. And I think that's where you find the problem usually.
Yeah, yes, ending that. But absolutely, I mean, yeah, and we did. I was, we won't get into my whole emotional catharsis and that with some certain Star Wars things, but I completely agree with there's a metaphor of like the King Solomon myth with the baby that like so often we don't have one of the mothers own up and say, no, okay, fine, let the other one take it. You have, so many different people who grow up with the nostalgia for a franchise and are trying to recreate the nostalgia as opposed to like doing that next level of investigation as to like what did make that tick, what was innovative, and how can we not just try and replicate, but how can we expand? And this is also very much in line with what Jess and I are going to talk about with all the Ripley things. But I really believe that the more that we have inclusive, not just casting, but inclusive people behind the scenes, the more diverse our rooms are in every capacity. It's not just gender, race, sexual orientation. Then you get all of these people who have watched these shows as they were and have new ideas. And how exciting is that? Like, I want to see a fresh perspective because it's going to challenge what I think the show can be. And I just really feel that not championing that for the sake of show, but to just allow that space, because I just think we're going to get newer and more exciting stories that, and just to the fan toxic fandom, I think a lot of fans fall into the trap of comparing the nostalgia to the reality. Like, everyone's comparing their first experience of Star Wars or Star Trek to what they're actually seeing in real time, which you go back and watch anything, even the stuff that still holds up. It's still, you have to, like you're saying, that's exactly what Jessie does, is she goes, okay, but just remember that this is what this episode was like in the 90s or whenever it was. So
there was a ghost hand that picked the Enterprise.
It's canon.
How dare you?
Yeah. It's canon.
and that's, I mean, I love that kind of stuff though too. One of the best tweets, again, to talk about Star Wars, which we're not here to talk about Star Wars, but someone's like, a young Jedi finds their power after a long time, comes out of nowhere with extreme power and saves. And then they go, this is episode 7. Like that there's the surprise that you don't, it's the first plot of the movie. The first movie is the plot of the most recent first movie. So you just got to challenge. I think you're totally right, Mary, though. We just are, it's like a hit of drugs. You want the same nostalgia
Nostalgia's a hell of a drug.
I'm watching this thing again.
Yeah.
It's really hard to go in without that expectation. I can't watch a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot without wishing it wasn't the 80s. So that's just
John Armini, are you just soaking in the validation right now?
But I've people's whose opinions I have respected have said things about like I'm tired of like forced diversity in Star Trek, and I'm like, the whole point of the show in 1966 was to force diversity into American living rooms.
Or how about Star Trek isn't political?
Yeah.
Heard that too. In the Omega Glory, Kirk turns to the camera and reads the Constitution.
Oh yeah, it's like we the people, right?
Yeah.
That's
good.
Or the Declaration of Independence.
Well, and something forgotten. There was the episode where they leave a planet that's like, we believe in the sun, which is like a really like clear analogy for Jesus, and they're like, it'll be fine. So like, it's not like it's perfect.
Go back and listen to the Mission Log episode about that one. Yeah,
because people forget it, and when people like go, the religion was never a factor.
Yeah. Oh no.
I think there is a balance to be struck, though. I mean, I'm a huge fan of, say, Cobra Kai. I love Cobra Kai. I think it's probably the most brilliant balance of nostalgia plus telling new stories. And it has to come from obviously a place of respect and passion, but it also can't be afraid to take these characters that people have put on a pedestal, or even the creators have put on a pedestal, and break those molds. Characters have to change. They have to grow. They have to stretch. Johnny for all intents and purposes, we had an X amount of understanding of his character in the realm of 1, maybe 2 movies. But now we see a completely different character, and we're taken down a path of incredible storytelling with nostalgia to help support the evolution of that character. It's not that it can't be done, and it's not that it shouldn't be done. In my opinion, it's just that how are you going to do it? Does it make sense? Are you going to abuse the nostalgia for the sake of driving in viewers? Because we're all realists here. And I think that sometimes people will go to, say, like a Spock casting because they're like, you know what, those are guaranteed ratings. People will come in and watch because of that. Reunification 1 and 2. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Right. Great. I mean, it's a great 2-parter, but really advertising Leonard Nimoy coming in at the last 10 seconds of episode 1 isn't really genuine.
Yes. Yeah.
Or being honest, it's a little bait and switch, but it did drive in ratings. So we're at that standpoint where people can actually lift the veil and say, why are they doing this? And for what reason? And does it make sense? Or does this breach the trust that we've given these creators?
Beautiful way to put it, Norman. And a friend of mine is one of the producers on Cobra Kai, and very much that was important to them to not just go, hey, here's another success story for this kid. What is an actual trajectory of those characters 20 years later? And that is why we want to watch it, because we can relate to them. It's a really good point.
Speaking of the ugly intersection of capitalism and art, John, I'm going to say goodnight to you, and then we're going to wrap up tonight by talking to Mary and Jessica about their project, and we'll welcome you back next week and topic TBA. All right.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be on. Thank you all.
Ciao, John. Ciao, John. I
have that same reaction when people say that about your hand palm. Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're awesome.
You too.
Care.
Thank you.
Have a great night, man.
You too.
All right, so you are both here tonight to talk to us about what you're working on, and Jessica and I can share a bit about what we're working on. There's just so much creativity contained in this Zoom call. It's really, we'll probably get fined by the FCC for it. So you are both here to talk about Ripley Improv, and that's actually how I know Jessica, is through the Improv Studio, and I believe, Mary, that's the first time we met, or I don't know, maybe at a Discovery thing, I'm not totally sure, but regardless, you have teamed up, and you are producing, help me to get this right, the first improvised medical drama, Heartbeats, not to be confused with the Andy Kaufman, Bernadette Peters vehicle, Heartbeeps from 1984. Don't confuse it with that. This is Heartbeats.
I was thinking of the Don Johnson, one-hit wonder.
Looking for a heartbeat. Yeah, of course. Yep.
There's also a 2016 ABC series or NBC series called Heartbeat.
Oh,
about
okay.
a cardiologist. And you know what? I doubled down. I just said, forget it. We're different. This is the show's name. So yeah, but you nailed it.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
STM, Heartbeats with an STM.
Well, I learned recently you can't copyright titles. Is that true?
Common word.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's a common word. Yeah, common word.
Yeah.
I see. Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
All right. So, but tell us what happened here. So, Jessica, you are producing, you are directing, you are starring, and I know, too much.
I just tweeted John that I'm such a badass that it's like Hollywood's not going to know what to do when they're like, wait, you've been doing what during the pandemic? And I'm to that point, I couldn't do what I'm doing right now without Mary. And so we met Mary because of Star Trek. And John, we met because of Star Trek. I was in the first 3 seasons of the Improvised Generation, which is still going strong, and it's a wonderful, fun, amazing show, which was full of serendipity. I basically went to Paul Hungerford. I was like, I had this great idea for an improvised original series. He goes, we're auditioning for The Next Generation next week. And I was like, okay.
Sold.
Yeah. It just was one of those things that it was like, I was also 2 years too young in improv to audition for it, but it worked out perfectly. And then along comes Mary, who was just ready for awesome women and found it in Ripley, and we were ready for her. You know, there's like a certain point in your life, and maybe you've experienced this, where you're like, I have enough friends. I can't add somebody else to the roster because there's just a little too much. And then Mary comes along. It's like, oh, well, but she's always been there. So let's fast forward. She's guested with Ripley. She's guested with Improvised Generation. She's just, you know, part of the fold. And then I bring this idea to her, like, you know, I think we all at the top of the pandemic, like, had a fatigue of, like, there was a lot of posts going, it's okay if you don't do anything today.
Yeah.
And that is true today, because it's really weird world we're living in, and being kind to yourself and your energy level is very important. But all of a sudden I woke up and went, this idea that I had 3 years ago, it's ready. This is the time. And not only Ripley makes that vehicle drive, like, made that happen. I had the women to work with. I had the name and, you know, the support. Mary took the idea as though it was her idea also. I feel as though she was there 3 years ago when the idea came, which is crazy. That is not a common experience in Hollywood, as I'm sure you all can imagine. So that's my tee up for my co-producer, Mary Chieffo.
Oh,
right on. So then, Mary, so you come along and you're like, yeah, I'd like to produce some original improvised medical drama.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, everything. Jessica gave a great, very succinct summary of our origin story. And it's really true that I also, when I learned that their name was Ripley, that everything about this group was what I had been seeking for, the theater. And then improv is something that I was very intimidated by and didn't feel like I had a place in at all. Never thought that was where I would end up being so passionate. And but after guesting with them, I have started taking classes, particularly in long form genre, which has been amazing. And then Jess and I remember that it was around that time that you had woken up and we were just having a hang catch up on Zoom.
I woke up at 7 p.m. to be fair.
We literally rolled out of bed.
Nice.
And I said, yeah, you know, if there's anything that you're really wanting to do right now, like, let me know. And it was kind of just very open. And then once it was presented and I started coming into rehearsals and watching this group, not only the core Ripley group, but some awesome men and a few new women as well. And they were all just so great and building such an awesome cast and story, as not in the improv sense of story, just a world. And then the ball started rolling. We were talking about, we've been doing our watch along of the previous episodes leading up to our reopening on Friday. And I was remembering how we had this kind of teaser, episode 0. And I was kind of in the back, muted, camera off, as they were improvising and filming these scenes. And there was a certain point in that where I was like, you know what? I think if you just step a little forward, and that'll just make the shot a little bit cool. Like, I just saw myself creatively wanting to be more hands-on and help champion it. And, you know, I think once that tango was clear and Jess and I were like, oh, we really want to tango with this. And we opened at some point in September, like just that month leading into that opening, we just really found our groove. And it is a gift to find a producing partner and a collaborator who is the right Venn diagram of cans and not cans, but just, we know how to say, hey, can you take this on? Can I push this direction? Do you want me to look over that email? All those sorts of things. And I agree with Jess that it feels like she's been in my life forever. But to have this exercise in working on a creative level has been really thrilling, because you can be close with someone and not be a good creative collaborator.
Sure. Yes.
So very, very grateful that that's the case. And I mean, last fall was so exciting. We just figured it out. We've been using these green screens and figuring out how best to angle ourselves so it looks like you're in the same shot with different backgrounds, and
essentially a great TV show that happened to just be zoomed, improvised. It's just somehow really great.
Yeah. And the characters are so wonderful. You know, as we continue to draft ways of describing the show, it was really striking me how I'm like, I love these characters. I'm rooting for them. They're flawed, but they're earnest. And we just get to follow them on really fun, you know, out there journeys that do, you know, it's what we love about Grey's Anatomy. It's that there's plot twists and love triangles or rectangles and, you know, all sorts of just delicious ways to play. And our cast just like goes for it every week. And just earlier today, rewatching the first 2 episodes, I was crying. I was laughing so hard at one point. Like, it just got me.
I thought she was joking. Like, okay, it's not that fun.
It's one of those things where I just get so delighted. And for the most part, I've guested now twice as I'm the deceased sister of one of our main characters. But I'm mainly behind the scenes every week. I host, and then I'm there. Kind of, we have our way of making sure that we're moving to the next scene and transitions. We have an incredible behind the scenes tech team with OBS and everything, and just kind of making sure everything is running smoothly. But I'm always thrilled in those moments where I just get to watch the scene and be delighted.
Right.
And I just am consistently. I'm, you know, we're working out everything and every kink and figuring out, let's, you know, shift that around or whatever. But I am just always walking away feeling so creatively stimulated by it all.
And 4 words for you both. I have 4 words for you both when it comes to the medical field. You probably already experienced this or probably researched this, but full moon Saturday night.
I know what you're talking about.
I worked one of those.
We're not an emergency room, which is very helpful.
So okay, lucky you.
Yeah, have to deal with that.
Like any full moon Saturday nights in the medical field are nuts.
Not good.
And I get it. Like, right? Like nurses and emergency doctors will tell you that if there's any proof that the moon has effect over the human body, it is the emergency room on those evenings. So
Saturday night. That's funny. So now the most important thing, where can people find the show? And like how many episodes are out and what's the plan? Like how many more are you making? Like give us the whole breakdown.
Yeah, you know what? I'll drop a link in the chat to the first 8 episodes. Then they
Sweet.
can find us. So we decided to stream it on Twitch. I have enough of a runway on Twitch doing RPGs. Eliza Pearl, as some people may know, did Shield of Tomorrow on Geek and Sundry, and she's one of our main actors in it, and you know, obviously the Rippling Women and some of the TIG people. We just thought it was the best place to go before, you know, CBS buys it, and so you're gonna watch for the next 8 Fridays at 6 p.m. Pacific time, completely improvised live TV shows that are funny and poignant. And you could have suggestions in the chat during the entire show. It's so exciting. So I'll drop our Twitch link, and if people just follow us at Twitch, if they have a Twitch account, then they'll know when we go live.
See, and I love that shows like this have adapted to what we have to do now. You know, some of us are used to being in a room by ourselves behind a mic, but for those of you who have been doing theater and really relying on the live element, relying on an audience, you've been able to adapt to do something wholly creative and new and deliver it to a new audience. By the way, there was somebody in the chat, Anne-Marie says, Mary's such an amazing director. I loved her work with the play Closed Circuits.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Yeah, I know Anne-Marie. Hi.
Nice.
Right before pandemic fully hit in February, I was in New York last year. So a year ago. Wow.
Awesome. By the way, Alan, who is the provider of all of our Riker memes, every chat suggestion, lupus. Thanks, Alan. I hope you were there every single show for Heartbeats, and you just slide right in with lupus.
Alan can find a way to make. Oh, sorry, Mary. Go ahead.
No, I get that house reference as a.
Oh, you know, I'm a bad director because I don't know much house, but you can tell that it's.
Yeah, you've got the Greys. I'm so grateful. I had seen episodes of Greys, but I had never followed it until doing the show. And it's just such a great show, and also a great genre example of just how you can take characters and build and build and build and innovate and just keep reinventing a great core story and have a great female protagonist, which I just want to give my shout out to Jess, as as you said, producer, director, and star, who created her own Annabelle. Love is her character's name and is so fun to follow. And, you get there are flavors of Meredith Grey, but she's totally her own person, which I think is just so wonderful.
Honestly, I just wanted hot people to lust after me. So that's what the whole goal was. How do I live out my Grey's fantasy that way?
That's why I went into podcasting. I mean, it was a natural. Come on.
Subtitle number one, The
You have a
Thirst
face
is Real.
for podcasting for sure. You really do.
Boom.
Wow.
Well, actually, I think that's a really great segue to probably one of the better opportunities I've been given in a while, and also the pandemic that you've given me, John, in our little project that we're working on.
Wow, that was a master
That was
at
good.
work. That was
I'm
very
pro level.
good. Very good.
improviser.
Yes, yeah. So people on this show have heard me mention a couple of times Sci-Fi 5, and that is the new podcast from Roddenberry Podcasts. 5 minutes, 5 days a week is a little deep dive into sci-fi history. Just a short little thing to start your day or end your day. I mean, we're not commuting right now, are we? So check it out. It's topics from all over the place. Of course, we're Roddenberry, so we lean towards Star Trek when we can. Jessica, I'm curious. I mean, I know that you have deep nerd cred. I hate to put you on the spot, but was there anything in the shows that you've done so far that was like a surprise, a revelation, just a weird bit of trivia, and you're like, whoa, I'm reading this, but I had no idea that was the case?
I'm going to answer this differently than you're asking the question. I've taken a lot of the pieces of information that I've been reading and sharing them anecdotally in ways that, I'm now the expert on Deep Star 6. You know what I mean? Or
I like that a lot.
So, but what I did realize a lot about most of the scripts that I've been reading and doing for the show, that the people who are writing this obviously were either at the Star Trek convention or really liked Deep Star 6, or you know what I mean? There's an essence of, I remember that in these scripts that are pretty what's the word I'm looking for? Important to the core of that show, I think.
Right. No, I think that's absolutely true. It always is a surprise when we get to one that we really know nothing about, but we are very methodical about, looking at the list of potential topics and saying, ooh, I have a deep emotional connection to this particular thing, so I need to get it out there. I need to tell the world about this thing in 5 minutes.
And you gave me a list, hey, see if you want to write for this, Jessica. And I didn't take any of the prompts. I went,
fine, totally fine.
Well, and you had said that as much.
Yeah.
But you're right. It comes across differently when you're writing something that you love. And I hope you can tell that as when I'm reading these, when I'm sharing the information and reading the scripts, I'm excited about these things I'm learning about. I didn't know that Gene Roddenberry had been to the 1970s convention and that was the burst of the scene. And right. I love, not the Atlantic, I always call it the Abyss. And I didn't know that was, I love the phenomenon that movies are the same, that they come out during the same year, like a Bug's Life and Ants movie or whatever.
Right.
It happens all the time. So it's very cool to feel like I'm the person that's sharing this story because I was there.
And I can tell that, and you're a pro, but I can tell that in the delivery that there is some excitement there. And by the way, John Cooley chiming in about Don Moore Star Trek shirts. John, if you get me a date, maybe like a receipt and order something, I want to do the Sci-Fi 5 episode about the Don Moore Star Trek shirts. So I'm holding you to that. Yes. These were, if you were a kid in the early 70s, the short-sleeved, off-the-rack version of the Star Trek uniform shirts.
Oh, my God.
So they had the blue, they had the red, and they had bright green, Kelly green, and it's stunning. So Anovos did an adult size reproduction a few years ago, but they're awesome.
I now
They're
have
so
something that I
great.
need to get that I didn't know I needed.
They're fantastic. They're
Oh.
so cool. Yeah. And John is the keeper of the flame for the original Don Moore shirt. So, yeah, anybody who hasn't followed Sci-Fi 5 yet, of course, go to podcast.roddenberry.com. All the shows are there. You've got your long form shows like Women at Warp, which both of you are definitely familiar with. We love Women at Warp. You've got your mission log. You've got Priority One. You've got daily Star Trek news, about 10 minutes, everything that fits in Star Trek news for 10 minutes a day. And then we were all like, well, what if we did that in half the time? We'll do Sci-Fi 5 and we will hold ourselves to 5 minutes. What I'm waiting for is the day that a topic is maybe like 2.5 minutes and we just have to go like, so
So we like do like name that.
Yeah.
I can name that
Yeah.
fandom in 3
Right.
words.
Right, exactly. We'll do
Space,
something else.
Star Trek. Got it.
Yeah.
Star Trek.
This is an improv exercise where it's basically like, okay, improvise a scene. Now it's called Half-Life. You should call this the next one Half-Life.
Half-Life. I love it.
Right? And then you said improvise it shorter. So listen, challenge accepted.
I love it. Fantastic.
So on the next Mission Log Live, we're just going to have, non sequiturs of all different types of shows.
That'll be
Listen,
it.
if you ever need
Yeah.
non sequiturs, I'm the queen, but it's so engaging when I do it.
Love it.
I to the point where I call them tributaries because we all land at the ocean somehow. If we don't dry off, but
Yeah.
usually pretty good at it. Pretty
All
good.
right.
I
That's
have to
nice.
say that the Jess and I talk about that we're still finishing conversations that we started on our first friend date. And I'm not mad about it. We knew at the time the way it was going. We were like, oh, this is one of the, like I said, I was like, oh yeah, I know how this goes. This is great.
It's the best.
Yeah.
You're all having that data moment. Like, I get it, but that joke was told 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh my! But now her and I have gotten to the point of producer. And I know we're wrapping it up, but I'll leave us with this. Her and I have gotten to the point of producing where we were shooting one of our promos for the upcoming opening night, and we were basically like, oh, and remember, and what our actor was like, you guys didn't say any complete words.
Yeah.
You know what you said to each other. And we wouldn't have known that was happening.
Really?
And you're so right, John. All of that on Zoom, which is
Yeah, right.
kind of weird. It's not ideal. The business is really hard to be in right now. We're all
Sure.
trying to find our feet. This idea, if full blown Heartbeats would have been on a Broadway stage with 7 sets, completely improvised with, fly-in cameras and an audience, and it works better on Zoom right now. It is learning, like Mary and I talk about pivoting a lot, and being open to the pivot. Improv opened us up to, it's not exactly what we thought, but it's exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah. That's such a good point. I read that some of the best advice for an actor is create a body of work. Just get out there constantly working. And here, COVID threw us all for a loop. Like you said, the whole landscape has changed completely, but you're doing exactly that, which is creating work that people can go watch, that we can be productive with, we can be entertaining with. Like that's what to do. That's what you have to do.
And it's not easy though. So I don't want to say like, look at how great this was, or look at how hard it was for us and we accomplished. I think so many people are in their different varying levels of depression and disillusionment and sad that this didn't happen, or, oh my God, this was going so well. But what is nice is not only did we find a way to create for ourselves, we also have a cast of 12 people that are excited to be at rehearsals, aren't getting Zoom fatigue, and we are giving to an audience that's enjoying it for as long as we have the energy for. I might hit a brick wall tomorrow. It's possible. I might go to sleep and then come back. This is pretty much my day to day. But I am grateful that the idea was exciting and Mary ran with it enough to the point that it's here now.
Great. Awesome.
I'm
Well-
gonna.
Little guy.
Oh, go ahead, Mary.
Oh, there's a cat. First, we gotta get the cat.
Acknowledge the cat. Yes.
The Gerber. But on a slightly more mushy level, as many esteemed intellectuals have said, it really has been such a joy, because just to celebrate Jess's passion for this, like she had this idea, she woke up and had her revelation at 7 p.m., whatever it was, but that's the driving force. And for me, of course, I am passionate about it on my own, but it's that drive, and as a director, and how she shapes it, and how she celebrates all of our artists. Like it's I don't want to say it's rare, because I don't want to put that in the universe, but it's certainly not something you come across every day. And I'm just really grateful, but that's the environment we're creating. And like, it is a time of so much uncertainty that we can be certain that there's a Zoom room that we can come to, where we're creating a space for people to truly express joy and be delighted by each other. It's a very special thing. So just wanted to celebrate that.
Well, I mean, there it is, viewers and listeners who are catching this show later, you just met two fabulously creative and talented women who are creating and producing and starring and directing Heartbeats, which you can find at ripleyimprov.com, and go through the Twitch channel there. And of course, catch all the episodes, but do check it out, ripleyimprov.com. Support this kind of creativity and original content, which is so fantastic. And I'm just pleased beyond measure that you are both here to talk about it. And of course, while you're at it, go subscribe to Sci-Fi 5, because hey, it's 5 minutes. And what else are you doing for that 5 minutes in a day, right?
5 minutes, and you have awesome contributors too, like Alexandra August, who I just love, who did the Game of Thrones podcast, which I was watching. All of a sudden I saw her on the email. I was like, you too? Nice. But I also, I'm really glad you thought of me, John, and I'm glad we're like found a way to still be in each other's lives. So thank you for that opportunity.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Well, take care, both of you. Norman, thank you again. And we will, maybe we'll show up and do a show next week as well, right?
I think the odds are pretty good. I wanted to say, Mary, it was nice to see you again. We were able to do a show before. Jessica, it was very nice to meet you. And I want to thank you both for doing this and persevering throughout this COVID pandemic, because if there's something that's worth doing, it's worth doing with passion. But the thing is that it's also reaching out to somebody, and you never know when that one episode or one piece of your work will be able to change somebody's life in this space that we're in right now. And there's nothing more powerful, nothing more healing than laughter.
Well, thank you. And you can definitely hold a mirror up to what you're doing too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Executive producer, Rod Roddenberry. Technical production on Mission Log Live is by the insouciant Earl Green. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry podcasts, including Sci-Fi 5, among others. If you would like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/Mission Log. Thank you to everyone who joined us live or later and stayed late. Stay safe. Stay healthy. We look forward to talking with you next week.